So continuing on with our conversation about the Byzantine Empire, let's talk about some of the other leaders. We already talked about Justinian. So Heraclius, what's interesting about him is that we see that there's some key continuity from some of the classical empires in the way that he governed the Byzantines. Now, one of the things that he did was just language. He spoke the language of Greece instead of Latin, which was the typical language of the Roman Empire. And so what that indicates to us is that he wants to preserve some of the classical culture of Greece. He also is going to be a major proponent of course, keeping out outside invaders. In particular, he's trying to ward off invasions from the Near East. The Sassanid Empire, which was located in Persia, is frequently trying to push against the Byzantine Empire, and Heraclius is not going to be absolutely victorious over outside invaders, but what he does do is he manages to greatly reduce the power and influence of the Sassanids in Southwest Asia. And so he sort of keeps them at bay and maintains the continuity and strength of the Byzantine Empire. I do not have his dates down here, but in case you're curious, he ruled from 610 to 641 CE, so that's not too far after Justinian. Leo III. This is starting to talk about the significance of religion and some of the changes that we're going to see in the Byzantine Empire if we compare it to Rome. So Leo ruled from 717 to 740 CE, and he's also the first ruler of what we call the Syrian dynasty. So we also we can infer from that he has more of an Eastern influence in the way that he governs. He defeated and reclaimed much of the Near Eastern territory that was lost by the previous ruler, so that also shows us why there's some Eastern influence during his rule. He gained additional lands also in Asia Minor, which is essentially Southwest Asia, Turkey, that area. He is most well known for his policy of iconoclasm, and essentially what that means is he does not want people to worship religious icons, right? So if we think about religious icons, we are thinking about symbols, we are thinking about artistic representations of religious figures, right? So the example here in the middle is an example of an icon, right? It is showing Mary and Jesus. You could also think of just images of Jesus on a cross. That is also a good example of an icon. One of the things that really differentiates the Eastern Orthodox Church from the Roman Catholic Church is the use of icons. If you are in an Eastern Orthodox Church, you're not going to see all those visual representations. Instead, if you do see art from the Byzantine Empire, you're going to see things that are more like this. This is just an image of the royal family. This is Queen Theodora and some of the associates in her court. So there are no religious figures in this art. One of the reasons why we tend to think that Leo also was influenced by the East is because in Islamic traditions, there is also no use of icons in their worship. So there is certainly a suggestion there that there is an influence from Eastern areas. Now, this is not something that's going to be supported by everyone within the empire. Monks, nuns, and also some popes were very opposed to iconoclasm. They believed that worshiping icons was an important part of Christianity. And we're going to see then that that's one of the reasons why the church eventually splits into an Eastern and Western portion. So another ruler, Basil II, he ruled from 976 to 1025 CE, and he also is well known for expanding the size of the empire, so he sort of continues where Justinian left off. What that shows us also is that even though there was a period of decline after Justinian, the empire is going to be able to recover and win back some territory. One of the most significant battles, successful battles during Basil's reign was the Battle of Clydion in 1014. The reason why that mattered was because they regained some territory that they lost in the Balkan states, which was something that the Bulgars invaded previously after Justinian's death. So let's just go back, show you where that is. The Balkans is going to be a really important region for us later in the year, but we're talking basically about parts of Greece, we're talking about present-day Serbia, we're talking about Albania. So if you're thinking about the modern countries, that's where the Balkans are. Under Basil, they're going to be able to win that back. And again, they are also going to gain some more territory in Asia Minor. So Basil's well known for helping the Byzantine Empire recover. All right, let's move on to the Byzantine Church, and we will talk about that, and then we'll take a break and talk about the economy and the decline of the empire after that. So the Byzantine Empire was a theocratic state, okay? So that is a difference from Rome as well. A theocracy is basically a word that means religious rule. There is no separation between church and state, unlike the Roman Empire, okay? The Roman Empire actually had a separate government and church, right? The Roman Catholic Church was sovereign from the government. So the emperors did not actually administer any sort of authority over the Roman Catholic Church in Rome. This is very different in the Byzantine Empire. So the religious leaders in the Byzantine Empire actually existed as a department of the government. So we could see them sort of as a section of the bureaucracy. The emperor appointed the head of the church. So he had a direct role over church leadership. He appointed other church leaders, and he also called church councils into session. The emperor was also responsible for making important decisions about religious doctrines and rules. And the emperor could even dictate what types of sermons could be delivered to local congregations. So he literally had control over what could be said in the church. And again, the church was treated as a government department, so no separation between church and state. The Byzantine Church spread considerably, even in the earliest years of the Byzantine Empire, so during the 300s and 400s, going backwards slightly. There are going to be a series of monasteries and other religious communities that are founded throughout the Byzantine Empire. I was trying to look for images of old monasteries, but of course these were so old that most of them lay in ruins. So I don't know if this dates all the way back to the original monasteries. It probably does not, but you get the idea, right? Monasteries we essentially associate as, first of all, housing for monks and nuns. They were not very ornate and wealthy places, right? If you joined a religious order, the idea was you were abandoning all worldly possessions. Your job, if you lived in a monastery, was to pray and to work, right? Also, if there was some sort of tragedy in your local community, like a natural disaster, for example, a famine, something like that, your job as a religious figure was also to provide aid, either by just helping people, by giving them prayers, their last rites if they were dying, or also providing food and other services to the community. Monasteries were not major centers of scholarship and education in the way that they were in Western Europe. Monasteries actually are going to sort of turn into locations of study farther in the West. It's not exactly like that in the East. And also, like I was saying in a previous slide, most monks and nuns were opposed to iconoclasm. They wanted to keep icons in churches and monasteries. So that's one of the sources of tension between monks and nuns and the Eastern Orthodox Church. And also the Byzantine Empire was very much in support of proselytizing people, which is a fancy word for converting. The way that they did that was the way that most religions do. They sent missionaries to far-flung reaches of the empire, and the missionaries worked to convert the people that they came in contact with. Oftentimes they were focusing on people in the outskirts of their empire, so they're looking at, for example, the Bulgars and the Moravians, which, again, we talked about the Bulgars earlier. The Bulgars are settling in, not surprisingly, where modern-day Bulgaria is, so their region's also in the Baltic states. And Moravia is a little bit farther north, but essentially they are looking to try to convert them into Orthodox Christians. And this is significant because we're going to see that Christianity is going to proliferate because of the strength of these monasteries. And one of the most famous of these missionaries was Cyril. Cyril was well known for creating an alphabet, which we refer to as the Cyrillic alphabet. This happened in the 800s, and the Cyrillic alphabet is loosely based on the Greek alphabet rather. You can see some similarities here just aesthetically, but you can also probably tell if you're familiar at all with the Russian language, that's what the Cyrillic alphabet is going to lead to. They're going to be Slavic-speaking languages, so things like Russian, languages that are spoken in other Eastern European countries such as Slovenia, such as parts of Czechoslovakia, places like the Ukraine. This is what is going to base those language groups. Cyril not only is going to spread religion throughout these Slavic-speaking regions, but he's also going to help promote literacy because of the creation of this alphabet. He also is the creation of the Cyrillic alphabet also made it possible to translate the Bible and other religious texts into this new alphabet. And that's going to promote literacy in general, and it's also going to help promote people to convert in mass numbers, because now they can access these religious texts in their local language. And again, like I was saying earlier, this alphabet is adopted by Russians and many other people who speak Slavic languages in Eastern Europe. The religious legacy of Cyril is that this type of Christianity that was practiced in Byzantium, which we again are referring to as the Eastern Orthodox Church, is still practiced in much of Eastern Europe today. So even though the Byzantine Empire dissolved centuries ago, the religion still remains. Good example of continuity. And lastly, before we take a break and start with the new video, let's talk about the split in the church, right? So what we're going to see is that there are going to be some major issues that are bringing these two churches into tension with one another. Some of the major issues: iconoclasm. Again, the Western people, the people who eventually are going to form the Roman Catholic Church, believe that there still should be religious icons, so they're against iconoclasm. They also believe in papal authority in the West. They wanted the Pope to be seen as the head of the church, whereas the eastern portions did not. Also, they disagreed just on location. They both believed that there were two different places where Christendom was really centered. The Eastern people believed, not surprisingly, that Constantinople should be the center of Christendom, and then the Western people believed that it should be in Rome. And so the ultimate effect of this tension is what we call the Great Schism in 1054. As we can see in this map, literally the church split in two. Everything that's represented here in blue forms the Eastern Orthodox Church, and everything that is in orange on this map is going to associate with the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, so the major differences again: the Pope. The Pope is really significant to Roman Catholics, and not so significant to Eastern Orthodox people. You're going to experience also some other subtle differences, like in terms of architecture. Of course, more of an Eastern influence in the eastern portions. And of course, let's not forget that this is not the only time that the church splits, right? If you're familiar with the Renaissance era, you might be familiar with the Protestant Reformation. The Roman Catholic Church also endures its own periods of splits, right? So the Protestant churches are going to be forming, but that happens much later. That happens in the 1500s. And also, of course, there are going to be unique sects of the Eastern Orthodox Church that form. So, for example, we're going to see that there's going to be a Greek Orthodox Church, right? There's going to be more of a Russian-influenced Eastern Orthodox Church. But ultimately, what you really need to know just is that there's the split between East and West in terms of the church. All right, let's take a break here, and then we'll pick up with the economy of the Byzantine Empire, and then we will also talk about the arts, education, and decline. So stay tuned, and thanks.